All right. Are you ready? Are you ready to be introduced?
Shooting. I'll get her down on the.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the last session. Kicking off our final session, we have Gill Notman from the University of Cumbria, who's going to be speaking on marine plastic.
Excellent. Okay. Oops. Hello, everybody. Just a little tiny topic for me to cover today in an entire room full of experts on the marine environment. So I really hope I don't offend anyone. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is talk a little bit about how fantastic plastic is. Because, well, I'll come to that in a moment. We'll think about the sources of macroplastics, think about the sources of microplastics. Then I'm going to collate to you with a little bit of data about some beach litter that I found around the coastline, and then kind of open up the question to you all about what we should be doing about this kind of pollution in our environment. So there was a few astonished faces when I said that plastic was fantastic. How many of you have had life-saving medical treatment? All right, we'd all be dead, right? How many of you got here today using some kind of plastic device? A train, a bus, a car, a bicycle? Okay, so again, the world would be a very different place in this room if we didn't have plastic in our environment. In fact, plastic has revolutionized our life since the very first plastic Bakelite was invented in about 1907. And since that time, we have found so many different ways to use these incredibly diverse range of plastics. Now, there is a danger that I'm going to talk to you a little bit like plastic is only one thing today. Of course, plastic is a whole range of materials with a whole range of different properties. But I can't go into the details of that in the very short time I have available. But what we see here is just some examples of how plastic has changed the modern world that we live within and how it wouldn't have even developed the way that it has if we didn't have it. We've got toys, we've got furniture, we've got packaging. You know, food packaging has made an enormous difference in terms of food waste and spoilage. I'm not going into too much detail, remind me to keep going. Personal care problems, medical devices, building materials, textiles, agriculture, aquaculture, and fisheries. None of these services, none of these processes, none of these technologies would have been possible without petroleum-derived plastics. And life would be very different if we hadn't invented these different types of polymers. But we are starting to realize that not all is well in Barbieland. Whereas plastic may be fantastic for us, it's maybe not so fantastic for a wide range of marine life. Now, some of these photos are a little bit awful, so I'll skip through them quite quickly. So we have all sorts of issues with large plastics in the environment, entanglement, ghost fishing. We have issues with particularly these surface feeding seabirds. They are adapted to feed at the very surface of the sea. And in the absence of plastics, in the absence of humans, anything floating on the surface was pretty much edible. And so when you see, this is an albatross chick, and when you see these chicks that have been provisioned by their adults who are picking up materials off the surface of the sea, well, they're not getting much food, they're getting a whole pile of different types of plastics. We have seals. We've had quite a lot about seals. We've had a few people talk about some of the damage that's done. And this is a really horrible image of what happened through one of these frisbees with a hole in it, getting lost at sea and then being attached around the neck of a seal. And here we see some serious damage that's been done. This one was rehabilitated. It wasn't euthanized. And of course, we have our sort of iconic image of that seahorse floating around with a cotton bud. I'm sure you're all well aware that macroplastics cause all sorts of problems for marine life. The most obvious for these big bits of plastics that we've just seen for those images are entanglement and entrapment. But we also have issues associated with ingestion. And once animals are starting to ingest plastics, then we start to see issues with the toxicity and even behavioral changes as a consequence of what's happening at the sublethal level for these sorts of things. So I'm not going to go too much into this. You can read this paper if you want and find out more about each of these case studies here. I should have warned you, I'm a bit infographic-tastic because I've got to summarize a lot of complex information in a relatively quick way. So here's some more. So what we need to think about is that anthropogenic litter, which is not just plastics, there's a whole range of different types of anthropogenic litter that can be causing issue. Oh God, already? Right, okay. So it lasts a very long time in the environment. The plastic that was discharged in 2017 is heavier than 1 billion elephants, and there are no longer 1 billion elephants on Earth. The trouble with macroplastics is it doesn't stay as macroplastics. It breaks down very quickly and becomes microplastics. And not just microplastics, but nanoplastics and picoplastics. These plastics are invisible to the naked eye and are ubiquitous in the atmosphere, in the hydrosphere, in the soils, the lithosphere, and also in the biosphere. And they present a whole wide range of problems, essentially. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I haven't got the time. But basically, this is a nice infographic which shows us how microplastics are transported from human activities into the marine environment. They are transported through, oh, we've gone too far, never mind. So we've got transport in the air, transport on the land and the water, and from the activities happening on the beaches themselves and in the marine environment itself. These plastics are transported both vertically and horizontally. Those vertical transports mean that they're accumulating in sediment and they're affecting sediment properties as well. You may have heard we're in the Anthropocene. This is that we can see geological evidence for human activity in the geological record. Microplastics are particularly insidious. We don't just have the issues associated with organisms getting entangled or drowned from associating with these plastics. We have a whole range of other issues that are associated with micro and nanoplastics. Plastics are non-polar, which means that on the surface of even the tiniest piece of plastic, we can have toxic chemicals being adsorbed, so stuck to the surface. When those particles are ingested by the organisms, that can release those toxicants back into the organism's digestive tract and cause issues with cancer, immunotoxicity, neurotoxicity, genotoxicity. There are many endocrine disruptors that are associated with these kinds of plastics, which is changing hormone levels in organisms too, which affects all sorts of things. So food intake, growth, reproduction, mortality in every single organism group that we've looked at. I mean, we could be worse in the Northwest region. We could be on the outskirts of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. So, you know, there are causes for celebration, I think. How long have I got, Georgia? Oh, 2 minutes. It's luxury. Right. So when I was asked to come and talk to you about marine plastics, I was trying to find some data over the last few years that people have been looking at, and I couldn't find a huge amount, but I did find this study from Nelms et al. That was done on beach litter across the whole of the UK between 2004 and 2014. And what we can see from their kind of overall, we didn't have so many surveys in our region, so maybe that's something we could look at compared to some of the other more populous areas around, particularly England. Scotland's got a bit of catching up to do as well. But what they found was, so these colouring here is the number of items per person per minute that were recorded by the volunteers on these beach surveys. So in our region, which includes a bit of Wales, we can see that we're kind of amber in that situation. The majority of the plastics that were recorded were plastic, and it was the source of these plastics were kind of things that people, the members of the public, had ditched, so plastic packaging and things like that. Similar proportion coming from fishing gear, and also from sewage waste. And so what we found in our region, which is the Irish Sea region, is that most of the plastic, or half of the plastic actually, came from land-based sources. Our friends at the Solway Firth Partnership have been doing some great work with litter over the years. Please talk to Shobi about some of this if you're interested. They've been doing some really nice stuff funded by some Scottish streams for funding. I wasn't able to find any kind of equivalent quantification for around our coast, but Claire at the Solway Trust put me in touch with a chap called John, and John has been undertaking beach cleans along the other side, the English side of the Solway Firth, for the last few years. And in fact, they've just recently completed their 500th survey. And what you can see from these images, I haven't been able to do any major analysis on them yet because the AI isn't quite good enough to identify all those things yet. Maybe one day it will. So we see a whole range of different things, but anecdotally, John says he reckons about 40% of that debris comes from the fishing industry. So he sees lots of fragments of nets and ropes and things like that, as you can see in some of these images. We've got a lot of big rope here. Despite the ban on cotton buds that we saw in that iconic image with the seahorse, despite the ban, they're still washing up. Gotta go. So they're still washing up. So they're coming up from sediment sources. It's a real challenge. What we might describe plastic pollution as a wicked problem, because there's so many stakeholders involved in trying to organize it. It's not simple. But we definitely do need to do something. So I guess what I'd like to find out from you guys is what you think we should be doing in our region. Here's 10 minutes.
Perfect. Any questions?
They've kind of gone on for ages. Well, come and have a chat with me at the end of the day. Oh, you've got a question? Yes. Well, brilliant. Please speak to me. I did try to reach out to as many people as I could, but right, I did reach out to them. Hey, yeah, great. I'll come and speak to you later.
Thank you very much.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
Just on the beach clean note, I think the Great British Beach Clean is coming up. Might be wrong, but please get involved. And now I would like to welcome Volker to speak on underwater noise.